So I generally like to say, who's experienced seventh seal before already? And I already know there's somebody in the room that has. And the reason I like to do that is because if things aren't experiential, I don't know, they don't entirely grab me. You know, so I was really thrilled when even this shape itself has a powerful feeling that is, I mean, it's calming me down is what it does. And I'm like, do you have something that you can make me that I can drink that calms me down? And this is actually even better. It takes away anxiety, the combination, you know, I don't even know that I fully have an answer why the shape is so powerful, honestly. Because when I added the additional number sequences that these other devices have, hi, come on in.
Hello.
It got way more powerful because there's more intelligence going on, obviously. So the initial intelligence, want to try it? Is, you know, profound. Are you going to join us, or are you just going for a drink?
I'm here for Jack. Sorry.
You're welcome to look.
Yeah.
You're welcome to look. I think you might be in the back or out back.
Okay.
It empties the mind.
So, you know, I have a wealth of information, but then when it's simple and you can be like, oh wow, that works. And I haven't fully discerned, like, if there's a stage up in power, like you got a big one, you're gonna get a big blast, or if you have a little one, you're getting a little blast. But I did experience when I ran out of these at a conference. I have it on my business card, and I took it and I sat on it. You know, this basic original seal symbol right here, and it felt just as strong as sitting on, you know, a larger one. So that kind of makes sense in the microcosm, macrocosm of things. You know, if it's one, it's the many, right? The holographic universe. Oh, thank you so much. Is this it?
Yeah, that's yours.
We communicate that, the
Am I-
intelligence
Am I in the shot?
of everything is in everything.
Seed, is it fruit within seed, or seed within fruit producing more fruit?
Right? Have you experienced one of these before, the bigger one? Wood
thank you.
on your like
I'm not-
heart chakra. It's incredibly calming. Hey, good to see you. Thanks.
Hi.
Yeah, so like I said, there's volumes of information about mystery school content, and I could talk probably 10 hours straight on the amount of information that there is. So what I did is I created some little media flip art to kind of, you know, guide me along and keep me on track so that we don't take hours upon hours to give a nice overview that would encourage you to read the book. So you felt those, yeah? Right on. We're gonna talk about 5 layers or levels of information, types of things. The one was the shape itself that I channeled in 1996. It just kind of came right through me, and I just was instructed. Back then I had a lot of voices in the head to grab a ruler and a pencil and a compass and a piece of paper, and boom, it just like came out really quickly. And by the way, when I tried to redraw it, it was super challenging. Sometimes geometry can be challenging in and of itself, but this was, yeah, just very activating to draw, as many of you may already know when you tune in and create something in the sacred geometry realm, right? You kind of have an activation in the process. So one of the levels is the activator, and the activator kind of came, I said that I created the basic shape, came through me in 1996, quite a long time ago. The additional accelerator information around the sigil, called the seventh seal, we call that the seventh seal. I was again instructed to basically create this sigillum. For anybody that understands who Dr. D is, back from the 1600s, he was instructed to make a sigillum, and it opened a vortex, and through the vortex came these angels, and he created what's called the Enochian angel language. Some of you may have heard of that. And so when I was instructed to put this together, I didn't know what to expect. And I was at a dinner party, and I wanted to have this lady that was hosting it, who was very experienced in a lot of things, check it out. And she put it under her chair and began to ooh and ah like she might be having an orgasm, and it was kind of awkward to everybody. And she was just like, it's just giving me a next level Kundalini activation. And so I was like, wow. And literally ever since then, that was about 4 years ago, I guess. I was thinking 3, but I'm horrible at time. Because I like to live in the now moment. She and others have proceeded to share amazing stories. Your story is really powerful about the flowers that outlived all the other ones because it was placed on the coaster.
By far outlived. I was gone for a long time, and then I came back and they were still going.
And so why is that? Obviously to some and not so to others. The thing that it really does is it organizes the information in the field to the highest. It literally is like divine intelligence. It works with you at the level that you're ready to be worked with. Because I've had other people step on it and literally step right off of it. It was in fact your friend, and go, whoa, there was a master that came to me and said, are you ready for the next level? And they were like, had to think about it a minute, and then they stepped back on, and it opened up other dimensional doorways. And so I've heard, different stories from different people at different levels about how it can activate and give you access to your multidimensional consciousness and just healing. In fact, I was at a event here in town and had a booth, and a lady just went like this, and she held it for probably 30 seconds. It wasn't long, and she went, whoa, that just went into a place in my heart that I've been trying to heal forever, and I'm a healer, and it just cleared it. And I was like, again, we have to be writing down these testimonials, because literally all I did was 20 years ago, I wrote this series of books, and I'm going to begin to sort of outline, the story that led up to it. And I did feel like it was my higher self channeling the contact. So, how it began for me, that's so yummy. I'm just going to continue to not let that get cold.
Yeah.
And what's your name, brother?
Gabriel.
Gabriel?
Yeah,
Nice to meet you. And we have Raquel, who's my dear friend, and
Majestic.
Sebastian, Mathues, and our lovely host, who we all know and love. Whoa. Oh, yum. More interruptions, thank you. So we're going to try an activation, like a concentrated one, after we get through the little overview that I'm going to give. So, it all really began for me at a very young age, literally when I felt a connection to the Orion constellation. I might have been 10 years old, and it was literally when I was experiencing some psychic abilities. At the age of 17, I went down to the bookstore, and a book ghosted off the shelf, literally fell at my feet, and I was like, I guess that's the one. And it said how to develop your psychic powers, and it was written by Jane Roberts. Anybody know who the Seth material might be? Ever heard of that one? Pretty profound, because she was a medium that brought through a collective group of entities that represented themselves as Seth, which really spoke to me because of other Bible readings and things that I had and feelings that I had. But nonetheless, it was profound to finally feel like I had a friend. You know, I felt like somebody was understanding me, because the whole thing, the premise it was teaching was, your thoughts create your reality. And I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that we all learn on the walk of life, you know. And so I was having these number synchronicities that were happening then, and it was something I couldn't ignore, like the epiphany where you're going to write in your journal and you look at the clock because you want to note it, and you know it's 11:22 again, right? And so my whole like beginning journey was filled with almost like, okay already, okay, you know, like what is it about this number? It's almost eerie. And it just really compelled me to follow the breadcrumbs. And what happened when I was 25 was I had a channeling that was done, and Mother Mary came through and said, you're going to write a great book. And I thought, ooh, me? About what? And I asked her, about what? And she goes, numerology and sacred geometry. And I was in a room of people. I didn't want to ask the next question that was in my head. What the hell is numerology or sacred geometry? You know? And then I went down to the bookstore, the metaphysical bookstore, because we didn't have the internet then. And again, I had an experience with a book. It didn't jump off the shelf, but a piece of paper flew out of it when I went like, oh, numerology, huh? And this paper fell out, and on it said, this is the key to the universe. And it was a little triangle with 9 numbers in it, in a particular arrangement. And so when I took that home and started to work on it, like, how could this be the key to anything? This is like absurd, you know? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't, like, there's nothing special here. And then I had a hit, you know, one of these inner knowings, because again, this was at an earlier age where I wasn't entirely online with downloads. And it was like, flip these 2 numbers, and as soon as I did it, it activated. It like had an energy. Everything added up in every direction, you know. And so that's probably in volume 1 where it talks about that. But that's at the center of all of it, where the information is about. It's the divine consciousness of the creation codes. And what we're going to find out is that these creation codes are in everything. And so when I went to Egypt the first time, I noticed that everybody was like Drunvalo's books at the time. They were all looking at the phi ratio and the golden mean rectangle going through the tops of the pyramids. And I was like, something inside of me like wanted to say, you're missing the point. You know, the point was, okay, so it's aligned to the 3 belt stars, but that's only scratching the surface. That there's a huge map in the sky that actually is like a roadmap home, and that led me to understanding many things. And so that's one layer through the book, really about what the Great Pyramids really pointing to, and the multitude of things that were encoded into it. And one thing stood out to me and struck me as interesting, the phi ratio in the sky, is that the constellation of Orion, actually there's this old reference to this zone of the sky that includes the Pleiades and Taurus and down to Sirius. The whole thing was called the Sphinx. And if you know anything about Egypt, there's a tie-in to the Ben stone, and there's a story about the you know, dying and burning and resurrecting of the phoenix. And so I found that really interesting when I learned that. All these things were, again, breadcrumbs. But if you take a look between the primary constellations, it's perfect phi ratio. And we're going from the Sirius to the center of the belt star, all the way out to the Pleiades. It is in phi ratio, just like the Great Pyramids and just like everything in creation. It's like Mother Nature's formula. Everything's unfolding according to this, perfect formula. And all of this in Egypt was set up to activate. The mystery schools were all about bringing you online with your higher consciousness. And so,
Excuse me.
it's okay. You all right? Wrong pipe? The seventh seal represents the crown chakra. That is, the gateway to your multidimensional consciousness, and the Great Pyramid is the seventh temple along the Nile, which represents bringing it all together and ascending your consciousness. And so, this is a good point to say, crown chakra adds up to 7. Okay, seventh seal, the seventh chakra, the crown chakra, isn't that interesting? Well, isn't that interesting was the question that I had in my head probably like a million times since I was, in my youth beginning to work the numerology and go, holy shit, that number is that word? And I didn't at the time come to the realization or the discovery or whatever, the remembrance you want to call it, where I came to the conclusion, oh, it was crafted that way. Oh, all the key words that tell the story of ascension and that are the pillars of the reality that we live in, particularly astrology and the 4 fixed signs, and all the key words, all were crafted to match the master code. In fact, I told you already about 1122 again, and so I was, looking at the key words that tell the story. And to me, at the core of the story was, because I was also reading the Gnostic scriptures, I had an experience around those, and they communicate that when these two become one, then you move mountains. And these two are basically the intellect and the emotions, the mind and the heart. And so at the core of everything, at the root of everything, is a balance of the male and the female. And so it was profound to come to understand that the words that describe that simple formula add up to 1122. And I was like, wow, okay, that's, that was like finding the whole loaf and consuming it and going, that was yummy, I want more. So more breadcrumbs continue to show up. And when you look at the numbers 1 through 9, they basically represent a story of the unfolding of creation. And it carries the creation story from everything came and then, let's say down through the dimensions unfolded, and then you get to the lowest level, and then they're going to wrap back up as a return to the divine consciousness whence we came. So from source, everything was one, and many of the indigenous cultures on the planet believe that it all came from the mother. And so 1 is basically carrying a feminine vibration. 2 is the first separation, and the mother created the father. In the story that most people follow on the planet, everything came from the mother, and so she created the father, a bunch of them to have fun with because she was lonely, and on down this number progression it goes. Well, what was so profound to me is when I came to 7 and 8, which are just before 9, and 9 actually represents completion and wholeness. It represents the blending of the male and the female, the unification of everything. the two words that actually are right before that, that represent the final process, 7 and 8 add up to 1122, which again tells the story of 1122. What is the story of 1122? The story of 1122 is quite simple. It's again the mind and the heart uniting, the above and the below, the inside like the outside, etc., which is, you know, the esoteric underpinning of everything. All these kinds of hermetic, you know, sayings go back to the energy. And so the unification of these two is essentially what I've come to understand, and it's right in this map that you'll read about, or if you watch my videos, because I cover a lot of this in my videos, where the energy that's being channeled from the stars, like there's a very specific energy that's coming out of the Palladian system and out of the Syrian system, and they represent both a male and respectively a female energy, and those two energies come down through this complex and they merge, they pass right through, and this is something that Drumbelow was talking about, an energy coming from the stars and going through the sarcophagus. Well, he had most of that right, except he thought it happened on 11/11, November 11th. Maybe a gateway begins to open then, but all these alignments come into place, and it's called the Golden Gate, and the energy that comes in through this sarcophagus and this complex is extremely activated. And that's something else that I felt every November, the energy and the synchronicity began to increase, again, to a magnitude of, oh, okay, what do you want me to do? And by the 22nd of the month, it was just coursing through my body. And this happened like 7 years in a row. And so it became obvious that the energies were coming in, and they go down to a location that's called the 0 point. The 0 point is a place where Edgar Casey talks about there was the Temple Beautiful, and it was where you went after the initiation and activation in the Great Pyramid. You went to be, rest in this Temple of the Beautiful and integrate the energies. And actually, the geometry and everything that I worked out, it's a perfect spiral that comes in from the Pleiades and comes right down across the peaks of the Great Pyramid. So everybody was like looking down at, oh, that's cool, it goes to the top of the pyramids. And I was like, well, where does it come from? You know, this is a much bigger picture. In fact, so on the date of November 22nd, the Golden Gate, when these energies are the most powerful, was known by the ancients. It had to be, because it was encoded in so many ways. It's right here in the zodiac itself, right here in the fixed signs and the months and the words that describe the months and the months themselves. When you take the 22nd as the cusp, a lot of people understand that we have signs changing, around the 21st or 22nd. They alternate. But I felt that it became obvious that there was a key around 22. That was another number that I just couldn't. It was like, that's my birthday, and we each have our numbers that are a guiding light to us. And so what I found is when I made each one of these mathematical equations on the 22nd, it added up to 11 and 22 when you brought them all together on the fixed signs. And the fixed signs are really important for a variety of reasons. They are built right into the Sphinx. A lot of people don't know this. The Sphinx is actually 4 things. It's the body of a lion, it's the head of a man, it has a hole in the back where the wings came out, and it has a hole in the head where the horns came out, which represents the 4 fixed signs of the bull, the man, the lion, and the wings represent the eagle of Scorpio. Scorpio is very interesting because it's the only sign in the story, the ancient story of the zodiac, that says there's a high side and a low side to the sign. In other words, the scorpion becomes the eagle or the phoenix, is what I like to imagine in the ascent of consciousness. So they understood.
And that is right in the month of 11, right?
Yeah,
Also.
it also represents the Golden Gate. Well, it's the cusp of Sagittarius and Scorpio, precisely. And the gospel in the stars, the story that's conveyed, written in the stars, all the characters. So this is Aquarius. I was looking for right here. Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus is the serpent bearer, and he's wrestling with the serpent, and he's where? He's right on the cusp of 1122, because he is basically the keeper of the hidden wisdom. And yes, it has to do with serpent wisdom. Yes, it has to do with feminine power. Yes, it has to do with the balance of the mind and the heart, bringing it all together, activating your superpowers. The church didn't want any superheroes running around. So they said, don't play with that, let's just cut you off right here, labeled the woman a temptress, possessed by the devil to go, throw men off their path. So they crafted a master plan to shut down our bodies and our systems from being online holy. That kind of makes sense. The holy body entirely, so that we could become the superheroes that we were meant to be. And this picture also illustrates that there's more hidden wisdom of alignments in the way the Great Pyramids were designed. I don't have the one that I was just thinking of, where there's lines in the ground that actually point to the solstice and the equinox, and then there's these two other lines that are these ones that they don't have names for. They call them 14 degrees above zero, 14 degrees below zero, and they actually are 522 and 1122. Because when I got the poster at Egypt, and came home with been there, done that, I was studying it, and I'm like, oh, well, these have to be important dates. And the others are the solstices and the equinoxes. And so I made myself the Sphinx in an astronomy program. And I dialed back time, and I just became the eyes of the Sphinx, watching what was coming up on the horizon at the times that it was coming. Sure enough, it was 522 and 1122 that the sun was at 14 degrees above and 14 degrees below. And then I found in the Temple Dendera, the zodiac that's on the ceiling there has demarcations that are at 522 and 1122. No other symbol, this is like the only symbol anywhere, and they're each unique, at the position of 522 and 1122, and you can see the zodiac and the characters in here if you take a closer look at it. I also had made these to pass it around, but if you're too busy looking at it, you may not be listening, so I haven't
What's that,
fully
522?
decided how to do this, but
What's that 522 and 1122 in the zodiac?
there's a symbol that
Uh-huh.
demarks where those locations are. It's also noteworthy to realize that the Milky Way goes right between those two signs also, at those gates, those cusp gateways. And so 522 is the silver gate, and 1122 is the golden gate. And when I read the Book of Enoch, and not the one by J.J. Hurtak, but the ancient one, the one that actually was favored by the Bible studiers of the day, which got deleted from history by the Constantinople Council that Constantine put together to shut down. Oh man, we don't need a bunch of superheroes running around. They're going to the mystery school, they're going through, the wisdom courses, and they're getting activated. We got to put an end to that. And what did they do? They basically reduced 72 books that were the Bible then down to 38 or 32. I forget the exact numbers. And they left out the Book of Enoch, which was the most prominent of all, because it had the language that described the Ancient of Days and all the things that you read about in the Book of Revelation. Some of the key things are really covered in the Book of Enoch. And I referenced Book of Enoch to say briefly that they say that there's two locations in the heavens. Sure, please. Two locations that demark where the Ancient of Days descends and ascends frequently, and the other one was the Gateway to Paradise. I might have added Gateway, they just called it Paradise. And when I basically read these chapters intently, they described the zodiac, and they described the tarot, and the different things about the gateways and the times, and this is the time you plant the crops because, you know, it's wet, and all the stuff that you find, like when you come to understand the zodiac, you know, you come to understand all these kinds of symbologies. And so after studying that, it all just came together, like with what we just were looking at with the Egyptian symbology, that they knew about these gates. And they talk in the book of Enoch about the importance of the gates. And I actually don't have a picture with me. You can watch my videos to see this other one, which is so profound. It highlights a thing called Enoch's calendar. And Enoch's calendar is literally where, at the time of the solstice or the equinox, the Great Pyramids have little pyramids next to them. You ever seen the little threes on the north and south? Well, when the sun hits the north on the equinox, it paints a shadow of the little pyramid, or, you know, like up to different times of the year, 3 little pyramids at the bottom of the Great Big Pyramid in shadow form. Like, they really understood the astrology and the, you know, astronomy of things, because everything was perfectly correlated, even so much so that when the new millennia came, 1999, turning to 2000, there's stars in the sky that actually, well, it does say that we might be off a year at least in the calendar, according to what the Great Pyramids were built to track, because it was a year after the millennium came that the star that tracks that was exactly over the Great Pyramid. Anyway, so the precision is profound, and it does illustrate that the builders of the Great Pyramid were not the Egyptians, sorry to say. They were more than likely beings that were far above and beyond, that came here and came to many planets and put these, you know, not just Mars, but put these monolithic monuments. You know, there's stories. I've been following this stuff for a long time, and the stories boggle the mind. That they found a body, because when I went to Egypt, I was going with people that were talking to the guards, and the guards that had been watching these things and, you know, protecting and putting locks on doors that nobody had access to. And one time they found a chamber that had a body suspended in it, inside of a green force field. Did I ever tell you this one? And inside the green force field was a human that appeared to be sleeping. And those humans, they just had the metal. They had to try to get in there and break that force field. And they tried everything, and it didn't collapse until they brought a moon rock. That it wasn't any of the platonic solids from the moon here, and put it up against it, and it cracked, or broke, or whatever, dissolved the force field. And I don't know what they did with the sleeping body, and the guard that, you know, told us the story said, I don't know what they did with it either. But I don't know, man. So maybe those were the pyramid builders. It was Drumbelow that said that Thoth taught him that there was beings that could reanimate bodies under the Great Pyramid and walk them around. So it does corroborate.
That's where they found that green force field person, was under the Great Pyramid.
It was in a hidden chamber in the Great Pyramid.
I've heard of that also in the mounds in the United States of stasis beings. And they were pulling out a lot of skeletal remains, which were the Smithsonian ate up in the late 1800s. But they also spoke of stasis beings that.
Yeah, I met somebody that talked to somebody that was in a chamber, not there, but a man and a woman that were like maybe 12, 13 feet tall that were in a stasis chamber. We have people that know people that have gone into a lot of talk about Antarctica and beings down there that are in stasis chambers also. So it does suggest that there's a network of civilizations that may have been, established by beings that were far, whether they're bigger than us, far smarter than us. However, there's great genius in this next thing I'm going to pass around for you to have a look at. This depicts how the English language was crafted. Now you have to understand something about the English language. It was a combination of French and German, and that was called Early English. And then it became Tudor English. Tudor English was basically, King Henry and the likes, they were, if you think of Shakespeare and King James Version Bible, that kind of speak was Tudor English. And then it got crafted into modern English. And modern English is what we have today. And when it was Tudor English, it didn't have a J in it. It literally spelt Jesus and the likes, John, James, with a Y. So there wasn't 26 letters in the alphabet, there was 25. And it is my belief from a number of reasons and experiences that Sir Francis Bacon, anybody know who that character is?
Saint Germain.
Yeah, he faked his death and became Saint Germain. Had a way with words and a way with pen in mind. He was denied the throne by his mother and gave her the big fuck you of Shakespeare. Like, I'm gonna, put on these shows and say, fuck you, Mom, and you're not gonna know that I'm the one that's, flipping you off. And what's so profound about this is that he wrote his first book called Advanced Learning, and in it he had a chapter called Cryptography. And when he was 21, he was part of their intelligence agency. What you're looking at there, by the way, is how he added the J and made it match certain things that made it more symmetrical in alignment to the geometries and pulled it all together. And we're going to get into that more. Like, so example, I'll come back to the other story. The number 144 or 72, the Bible says, oh, it's so important, 72 names of God, or there has to be 144,000. These numbers, even the secret name of God, 216 letters. You think there's really a word that's got 216 letters, or are they just saying the number 216 is so powerful and should be revered? Well, all these numbers that I just listed are all points on the compass according to the location of the axis of the Pentagon, and you're looking at it now.
Factor 9 grid.
And so he built it in with all this wisdom and awareness, and encoded it when he was 21, part of the intelligence service, receiving letters from other countries that were encoded and decoding them. And so I don't know exactly what year, but he created his own code, cipher, his own way of hiding messages. When he wrote the book in 1613 called Advanced Learning, the chapter revealed his cipher. And when you run the cipher on the book, the very first word of the book in the preface, underlined message says this: if I'm not dead, stop right here. What I'm going to tell you will get me killed if I'm still alive. And he proceeded to encode hidden messages under everything he wrote, including all the sonnets and plays, and all the books that he ever did, which were a couple more. And there's been a lot of study that's been done on these different layers, because I say layers because underneath the next message was another one, a way to decipher and go deeper. And there were 5 layers, and the 5th layer was all just numbers. And the numbers were what I believe we're going to be looking at here today. The revealing or release of an understanding that there's a master number system, and the master number system is the creation codes that the universe are constructed by. And then, so he probably felt like, okay, if the universe is held together with, light, sound, and color, frequency is one of the keys. Like Tesla said, if you only understood the magnificence of 369, you'd have a key to the universe. He must have had a similar statement, because he understood that. He probably understood it well enough that made another statement that went like, if the spoken word is so powerful, what if the words you speak are loaded with frequency? And if you're speaking about the right thing, it's empowered enough to manifest it. And it seems that all the words that describe the path to ascension and the story and the keys correlate to these profound numbers. And those profound numbers come unfurling from a basic understanding of the English numbers. This is a bigger picture of what I'm trying to describe to you. That if you take a number grid and you look at, there's 9 words that describe the 9 numbers, you can group them. 1, 2, 6 are 3-letter words. 4, 5, 9 are 4-letter words, and the remaining are 5-letter words. Anybody know what the Pythagorean theory is? The theorem of 3, 4, 5. A 3, 4, 5 triangle makes a perfect pyramid if you, the length, like 5 knots, 3 knots, 4 knots, and then flip it. It's a 51 degree pyramid. So 3, 4, 5 begins to beg the question, was all this crafted to carry the message of the wisdom? And I have to say, for sure, when we delve deeper in understanding that if you take a circle and just draw it and then number it like a clock, but only up to 9 instead of noon right here. And if you take you can't quite see this, we'll pass it around. If you take the sequence of 1, 2, 6, and the next group and the next group, and you just take your pencil and never lift it up and just go 1 to, and follow the pattern of the sequence of the numbers, it draws an ENAD perfectly, a 9-pointed star, without lifting your pencil. If that's not surprising enough, if you take the frequency table, like if you're dialing your TV in or your computer monitor and 1024 and etc., that's a frequency that those are going to resonate at to give you pixels. And you take the entire chart and you do numerology on it, which means break it down to a single digit number, and then you look at those single digits, they repeat every 9 times. It's a sequence of the same 9 numbers over and over. Anybody want to guess what those 9 numbers are? In the order that you're looking at right there.
1, 6, 2, 7, 3, 8, 4, 9, 5.
In that order, that draws the perfect star.
It reminds me of the vortex map a lot too.
Of course, yeah, I knew Marco a long time ago. He's done a great job. And that is exactly, what he discovered. And so I took it to another level. Like, oh my God, it's tied directly into the English language.
Yeah.
he wants to say it's tied into, you know, another thing, and it probably is tied into a lot of things.
So is this information valid for the multiverse or just in our universe?
I'll answer that question. With this slide right here. So this is a Great Pyramid, and there's dimensions built into it. And the dimension of this angle right here is 216. What's the significance of 216? Well, aside from that it was on one of the earlier cards, that it's one of the points on the pentagram, according to the 360 compass. It's the secret name of God. It's also directly correlated to the number of years in the zodiac age. Anybody know how many? Of course she does. 2,160. 216. So again, the answer is yes, I believe so, in the sense that if these are the codes that make up the reality and the construct of the universe, so if you take the great cycle of 25,920 years for the great cycle and you divide it by 12, that gives you the 2160. If you divide it by 60, it gives you another number that has 432 in it. So the significance of these numbers that are on this tree of master numbers, that is another slide that I would show, which is sort of ad hocing and freelancing here, free flowing. So whether I hit it or not remains to be seen. This is profound though when you come to understand that the key phrases that describe the significance of things like the word is key, no beginning, no end, God is geometry, the throne of God, frequency is the key, the way to ascend, Enoch is the keeper of the key, the perfect light, all of them add up to some form of 126, 612, or 216. So I found many cases where the numbers that come off of that chart, the one that we looked at was a bigger version of this, when you essentially took a look at the phrasing that described the numbers you're looking at and do numerology on it, and then took those n numbers, flipped them out into words and did numerology on it, it created a matrix of numbers. And the matrix of numbers have all these. Hi.
Hello, how are you? I'm actually over here. Are you here for the event? Oh, I don't know. My friend Sarah told me to meet her here. Oh, in the back. Okay, thanks. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. All the numbers in the matrix, that metrics, correlate to very significant things. And there's so many, numerous ones that it's even too much to, like it took me, 3 volumes, 1,300 pages to sort of lay it all out. But again, I lace it with other information that I found in the Gnostic scriptures that say something along the lines of, when the two become one, when the inside is like the outside and the above and the below, this is paraphrasing the Gospel of Thomas. Hi, have a good night. It says when the two become one, then you will enter the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of light. It doesn't even say heaven, it says kingdom of light. And the kingdom of light is right now, it's the eternal now moment that we all can tap into. So the next phase we're gonna experience here is the energy of an activation. And the 8th seal that I created, I don't know, 4 months ago. Yeah, it was only 4 months ago that I brought this next level through. And this level here got a number sequence of 16 numbers, and those 16 numbers come from hidden within the Fibonacci sequence. Layers within that nobody else has been talking about yet or discovered yet. Wait a minute, I think one guy, he made a realization that on line 72, there's 15 numbers and the value of those 15 numbers adds up to 72. Now, we're talking about something that could be, a million lines long. In other words, the whole 1 + 1 is 2, and the unfolding of the Fibonacci, look back and add it. And so as you keep doing that, the number of values keep getting longer and longer. Way up here at the top, there's a 55. And then way down at the bottom, I decided to run, I'm formerly a computer programmer, I wrote a program to analyze this. And what it did is it determined out of 2,000 lines that there's 16 times that the line number equals the sum value. One of them is 216.
Which is half.
Out of 2,000 lines?
There's 16 numbers that the line number is the same as the sum. So like down here, there's like 50 numbers.
So in the beginning, you were talking about law of attraction and action, and you're talking about creating our own universe and our own planets, because of these number sequences, they add up to the same as the sun and the moon and all of the things that we know. So maybe it is that I'm seeing it from this point of view, that the multiverse really is actually now, and the universe that we're in, it doesn't just say like there's the end of this one and the beginning of another and the end of a beginning of another. No, it's just a continuum for eternity within it, and these are frequency cymatic codes of how we can navigate our ship through that. If we were to start to see from here, we can see that, and from there we can see that, and therefore we can see that, and then the platonic solids all get back to how, if we know these keys, we can actually create our own universe and our own planets and our own cool people on those planets drinking cacao.
Yeah.
Yes, Camille.
And open portals and time travel and
Yes, all of these things. So this is like, because I've been asking all these questions and everything you're saying, it's like, from everything that I know, you're right on track with the key. The only thing that I was thinking about is like, how does it work outside of here? But then I realized there's no outside of here, because that's the fractal information of the hologram, is that it's infinitely intertwined within the fact that it nests itself within one another, always infinitely in a big, gigantic, and then smaller fractal ways. So
and in a phrase, you are everywhere and everywhere.
all of right now.
You are.
Yeah.
It all arises within our field of consciousness. Or
Yeah,
within
yeah,
the
yeah.
field of consciousness.
So we're really the architects really of this zone, and right now it's having to collapse in on itself so that it could really, like you said, the phoenix has to rise from its ashes in order to be reborn anew, so that we can actually have another planetary system, multiverse, if you will. The golden age.
Yeah.
The golden gate.
Yeah.
And this silver gate.
Yeah. So we already were the masters of the universe. We're just remembering.
So that's what we're doing right now, is we're
Pretty much.
waking up to all of our own keys, and how we're using them. It's like, what will you do with them is what we're doing with them now. So we're using them for love and gratitude and appreciation. And it's like, I'm not going for the $1 trillion because I like to create my own $1 trillion. And it's like, if I can create it, if you can create it, if we can create it, then it's not about the $1 trillion. It's about, we know how to create it. So we
That's
create
right.
whatever we need whenever we need it.
Then it's just a bunch of zeros,
Yeah.
and it's all a matter of what you consider a zero to be, full or empty.
Fully all
Yeah,
about
yeah.
friendship and experience.
Fully in alignment or not fully in alignment with the present.
And then this one we're going to experience. This is the new one, the ninth seal. It expands your light body. It has this one that I just placed out of the way here. This is profound. It has a number sequence around the outside, 60 numbers. Those 60 numbers also come out of the Fibonacci sequence. So as that thing unfurls and gets longer, as we go down towards 2,000 lines, if you simply just take the last digit off of each one at the end, it repeats every 60 times. And there it is. And there's interesting things that are happening in there. It's really only a set of 6 numbers going one way for 6 pentagram, and 6 numbers going the other direction 6 times, so there's 12 pentagrams in there. And when I created this one, it definitely had a next level activation, and so those 60 numbers are intertwined in here in the flower of life pattern. And you've been experimenting with this one. This one is, as you told me, there's layers to things that you could discover and do with this one. And so we're going to, my own personal experience was when I had the vision to create it and what it would do, activate your light body to the next level. I put it on the ground and I put my feet on it, and I noticed the energy field was actually causing my body to sway like this. And then every single person that I had try it, so far since then, the same thing. When they close their eyes, they're like, okay, this is powerful energy. All right, so I brought enough. I didn't know how many people you would be looking at. I think I brought enough. Yeah. We're gonna put this, and since you've already experienced it, maybe you can help me. Under your chair, and then after you experience it for a few minutes, if you like, we're going to invite that we put one over the top of your head, either the original 7th seal or that's also an original, just not painted. Okay, well the 8th, that one there, I know I have more of them here, over the top of your head, puts you in a chamber. Some people have described this as feeling like you've ever been in the Great Pyramid, in the sarcophagus? The energy, some
No.
people say it feels like being in there.
I heard somebody one of my friends said they went in it and they rang it and it rang at 432 hertz.
I'm sure it would,
Very cool.
Yeah, the sarcophagus.
Very cool.
because of the math that all points to that number anyway, so.
Sonic generator.
Okay, and if there's anybody that doesn't want to experience this, just raise your hand, so. Okay.
Does?
Does not.
Oh, no, I didn't do it.
Good. So we're gonna put that under your chair, and I advise that you put the peak pointing out the back of you like this. Peek out the back of you.
This is the night ceiling?
This is the night seal. You're looking at it upside down, but that's because we're gonna put it under you upside down. In other words, that's
Like
the
that.
top, right? And I'm going to set up a sacred chamber in here real quick with some things that I do to invoke the sacred space and protect us. Many people describe many things, the energy coming up, enveloping you, expanding. Spinning up the light body to the next level with the Merkaba and the heart pumping it. And now we're going to add I'm going to go
Oh,
around.
I was supposed to put this on.
Yeah. If you can.
What the heck? It was cold under my belly too. Felt good.
And now we're gonna, Raquel can help, you wanna start over there? It's work towards the middle. And we're gonna put this over the top of your head for like a minute. Doesn't take very long energetically with this stuff to really, you can work with it, you know, on your own for longer periods, but to really get the experience and get a sense of an activation. I'm guided to add one more piece for those that want this.
Yeah.
Put these in your hands like
Yes.
this. This really brings it all together.
Should I give him one too?
Alright, so
And then have them on my ears too.
sweet.
They're going now.
Super chamber eyes, super chamber eyes. So we're gonna give you one good minute here, just being quiet. I'm just seeing how we can reach you guys.
Would
So
someone
get
like
out.
to take this chair?
Get out.
Would you like to take this chair to experience? It's awesome.
Okay, we can do it that way, yeah.
Is that good? Would you like me to hold that while you talk?
Unless you wanna, yeah, you can, there's a side space to get in now, it was a little challenging before, right? Okay, cool, so. You know, this also has a flavor of being sort of initiated into the order of Melchizedek, the ancient one. I wouldn't be surprised if you would have dreams that are more vivid from this. So we're gonna give you a nice quiet minute. All right, beautiful. And now we can share a little bit. Anybody want to jump in and say what they did or saw or felt?
I felt, initially felt this
Oh,
swirling like you
no
said,
worries, no
but
worries.
then it started to centralize, started kundalini running up the central channel, just racing up, I mean, just bounding to heaven, some kriyas, and then fell into just a really peaceful state. I feel like there was a deep download that I'll probably unpack later and the two circles were put on the hands, then both side channels identifying the love became active and just started racing.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, I've experienced something similar. It just like goes right into the spinal column and right into pineal. Yeah.
Well, Jesus, I can't say his name, but the
Melchizedek.
and not the one from the Bible, but the blessed brother who brings forth the gnosis too. Like he speaks of this cycle that you can get into with the Kundalini energy, where it just races around the heart in this shape. And I felt that in a very powerful way, just constantly building up the heart chakra. Really powerful for it.
1, 2, 4, 7,
Fantastic. Anybody else?
9.
Something similar for me, like if I could describe it as something, when you're flying and you see clouds like doing this, that's how I felt.
Beautiful.
Just kind of like very light and kind of spiraling up. Felt good.
Very visual.
Really good.
That's the vortex of creation.
For me, I finally
And
got the
gratitude.
secret of the two become one. For me, the secret, because I always thought it was the twin flames, because I come from Mount Shasta a lot, for the violet flame of all-consuming discordant energy, being one of the ancient tantric flames, and I always looked at us for 8 years. We've been together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I looked at us as the two become one, as twin flames, but I realized that that's still separate than me, and that's obviously she doesn't exist outside of me because I'm the only one here. So I realized that the two become one. How does it apply to me if no one else is outside of me? Well, my head and my heart, the two become one. Cymatics, when my voice speaks through that connection, then I create reality.
That's it. You got it.
That's beautiful.
That's the intention and the desire. Maybe intention and
Yeah,
desire
the marriage.
coming together.
The two become
is
one.
The key to
And so
manifest
how it's
everything.
divided amongst itself can't stand is that right there.
That's it.
So when the two become one, it's obvious that that's where the key is.
That's it.
Whoa.
Bravo, bro.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Those are available. These are only $10 tonight. If you want to. We also were doing a donation, so you can just, I don't know.
I guess that'd be called the Stargate key.
Yeah.
Because it'd be the Stargate would be like this, the gate between your head and your heart. That star. Because then the 5-pointed pentagram that you're talking about, if you look at it in the phase conjugation in fractal physics, it's about implosion, so it's actually giving all of the unbeneficial waves a way out. Because basically, if you don't pull the plug on the bathtub, the water doesn't go out, and you need it to go out so you can fill it up again with clean
Inertia.
water.
Yeah.
So we're working on that in our hearts and how we pump that in and out and in and out and in, and that apana flow. I'm realizing now as the two really become one, the practice is really to just continue flowing and growing that, even in the times, especially from the times for me actually, when out there in the world, some of these people, they get us mad. They get me mad for sure. But then I realize, no, they don't exist. I go like this. Marry the head and the heart and just start breathing. I've been doing that for a while. I never really caught what I was doing, but I realized that's what I was doing.
Yeah, uniting them is essentially enlightenment. It's so when I was describing 11 and 22, I didn't say this earlier. 11 is like Christ consciousness. It's like master healer. That's what 11 is. It's a master healer in numerology. 22 is the master architect. It's about mastermind. So you got the mind and the heart, and the mind is 22. It also represents cosmic consciousness. When you put those two together, cosmic consciousness plus Christ consciousness gives you divine consciousness. 11 plus 22 equals 33. So 33, is a number that everybody talks about in the esoteric way, as Jesus was on the cross at 33, etc. It's even built into the tree of life. It's a hidden thing, but there is 22 pathways, and there are actually 11 Sephiroth, the hidden one that you have to say, wait, there's got to be one here to make it to the final triad of the top, male, female. You have to pass through by putting 1, and that gives you not 10 but 11. So 11 plus 22 is 33. So this message has been echoed throughout time of these important number values to activate divine consciousness.
33 is divine consciousness then?
Yeah, it doesn't numerologically have that value, but the message. There are many things that do add up to 33 that are quite compelling, but not that one.
What adds up to 33?
Priest. Uh, I've done like probably 10,000 words that have a significant value, and I don't remember all of them right offhand. But that's nice
Books
too,
of
because
work.
that's right. When I go back through it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's so great. I get to kind of experience it again for the first time since I've not been able to retain all of them.
So the power then, I guess, of word is, how is it that the word English language got made up from these other two languages? But how is it that all these languages got made up in the first place? What was the whole point? Because if cymatics is about frequency and vibration, then we just wanted to talk. Because I mean, we go to coffee shops and we talk all day. We have this language that describes all this stuff, stop signs, cars, airplanes, like needed bolts, nuts, screws, like how.
Honestly, I believe that before the Tower of Babel story, you know what that one was?
Yeah.
Right, that was that we all spoke the same universal language of light. And I believe it meant that we didn't even have the need of speaking, we just were all
Yeah, because we just knew.
telepathically
Oh.
communicating. We were
Yeah.
so forced as one.
Yeah.
But then something happened, and they were trying to build a tower up to reach God, to become God, wherever the story is.
Yeah.
I doubt it. But there was an experience that stepped us down.
Yeah, yeah.
And as we stepped down, we didn't do that anymore, and so we had to find other ways to communicate because we weren't just in each other's heads anymore.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah, I had one thing. It also developmentally, because we were conditioned to be something other than oneness, individuals, and thus we had to create a language to identify things in order to apply the conditioned responses to them.
Yeah, because I guess you're right. If we were nothing as infinite intelligence embodied before anything was in creation, then obviously that was the place of everything being one and unified in that way. But then when we became infinitely fractaled out, obviously then we have to learn to know ourselves and the fact that we're separate from ourselves. So we start to call it my nose and my ear and my mouth. But this is still on my face, attached to my body, connected to everything and everybody.
And the Tower of Babel is when we were taught developmentally the I versus as an individual, I in relation to everything in the language. It suddenly created us as a discerned individual within this creation.
Yeah.
Very true.
And I'm so sorry.
No, quite.
But
It's
the original language in my seeing is the Adamic language, is the 22 glyphs, the 22 glyphs of the Paleo Hebrew alphabet that were glyphs. You don't have to use the thinking mind. Every word is a vision. Every letter builds upon the next letter. It's a unifying language as opposed to a divisive one.
And you know where I think that came from? I don't think that Moses had a burning bush at all. I think that he was actually, what the Bible says, taught in all the high wisdom of Egypt, and that he actually knew so much about language and everything that he just created it.
Oh yeah.
And was like, we gotta have our own language. We're doing our own thing now.
As it is when we open a book, when we open the Bible and we read from it, it's just like a dream. We bring it into creation in the present moment to give us.
So one of us, part of the creator of all that is, created language for just like language, mathematics, art, music. All these things all are correlated once again, they all go back to the 0 point.
Yeah. Unity with ourselves.
So we just wanted to have different ways of communicating the same thing to make sure we didn't forget, because I don't think we could erase the Great Pyramids sitting out there in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
We tried it then.
I mean, in the golden age, we're gonna rebuild everything. I think we're gonna activate everything. We're gonna have it and more. And anyway, to try to keep it to an hour, which I don't even know where we're at, but it feels like we're in the ballpark. The last thing that I'm gonna, open up to you is I've got stickers and earrings and pendants and altar paraphernalia. If anybody wants any, got choices here. And of course, you carry some, so that's phenomenal.
You want that?
Yes.
So yeah, feel free to
I'm gonna buy this one for her.
okay to peruse.
Mhm. And if anyone would like a drink or chocolate, just let me know.
Brother, thank you for healing yourself to make yourself an empty
Oh.
vessel to receive this divine wisdom.
Thank you. I'm
With you is
happy
so much
to
love.
be able to serve. Thank you.
I was listening to you speak and I was just thinking, I love you.
Oh, I know. I
I'm
love you.
so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you.
And that
That's
activation
Amy's.
brought a
Thank
lot of
you.
gratitude up in me too.
Uh-huh.
I felt like that. But I felt like that this blissful light, but it also made me really grateful for this whole universe. And just like, I just felt really at peace with it.
Fabulous.
I think that's the golden key to all of this is that when each delivered light, he's delivering with all this magic and all the art and everything. Is it's supposed to be able to make us feel comforted